Hello again, Struck. Today I'm bringing you another build video for Warhammer Chaosbane, and this one is for the new class, the Witch Hunter, Jurgen Haider, and it's a fun build. It's not something I would take to Chaos 9 or Chaos 10 for that matter, but I think it's pretty decent, and I think up to Chaos 8 is fine. You can do it, you can speedrun Chaos 6, 7, 8 with this build, especially if you have full green gear, which I didn't, and you have some min-max rolls. Chaos 8 shouldn't be a problem. In fact, even Chaos 9 would be doable, but it's not gonna be worth it because you're gonna be dying a lot if you don't do something about the survivability for Chaos 9. I think Chaos 8 is good enough to get some items, it's fun, at least for me. I mean, if you don't like this kind of speedrunning playstyle, where you're mostly spamming your dodging skill, of course, in such a case you might want to consider some other things, some other builds, and I will try and figure out some better other builds that are not all about the speedrunning. I will try and find out a build for that can do Chaos 9, that's a little bit more tanky. Of course, in general it's better to play co-op if you want to play the higher difficulties, but the build is nice, I really love it, I hope you would love it as much as I do. I hope you get some good loot while using it. In general, it's all about spamming this skill, as you can see, and I've included two god skills that we can use for a burst of damage, and the footage you would see in this video would be mostly Chaos 8 footage at the beginning and at the end of the video. And then there will be some Chaos 6 footage during the skills segment in the Tower of Chaos, and there will be some Chaos 7 and 8 footage during the gear segment as a picture-in-picture. In general, I think it's probably my most fun build I've tried so far for this class, because I just like just being able to run around, do damage, stop, do some traps, do my god skill, and get wood by doing so. So first I'm gonna talk about the skills, then I'm gonna talk about the god skills, and after that we will talk about the gear and show you some more gameplay at the end. And here are the skills I'm using for this build. Keep in mind, I haven't thought too much about how to synergize this, and this is what I'm using for speedrunning for up to Chaos 8. I can do Chaos 8 every now and then, I can die on Chaos 8, but overall it gets the job done if you play it well, if you stack enough HP, if you maybe reduce the damage a little and get some more HP. Maybe you won't die as much, maybe at all. So yeah, I've done some Chaos 6, Chaos 7 and Chaos 8 while recording footage for this build, and it seems like a decent one for speedrunning. There's a decent amount of damage, decent amount of survivability for up to Chaos 8. I wouldn't suggest going to Chaos 9 or 10 with this build unless you super min-max it and maybe sacrifice some damage for more survivability. And maybe try and get another weapon for damage reduction or something like that. For example, you've got a pistol that can give you, I think it was this one, that can give you 20% less damage dealt on the enemies. So it's not giving you the damage reduction, it's making the enemies take less damage after they hit you. But more about that in the item segment. So for the skills, let's go one by one. Here you can use anything. I don't use this, and I don't actually use this. So in fact you might even remove this and level up something and just play without a skill in this slot. So whether it's gonna be Pierce, Persecute or Castigate, it doesn't matter, they cost 0 points. Here it could be Torment, it could be something else. You could try and maybe remove something and just swap it out to your liking. The things that are important are Condemn Mastered. It makes the enemies take 30% more damage, it gives you some healing, and it gives you some energy gain. Then Sacred Sigil Mastered, we need that on bosses and champions. It's very good damage, it's nice, and also you can see this damage reduction. It makes the enemies deal 50% less damage. And it's also considered a trap, so that might help do some tinkering later if you want to modify the build. And then here's the Heroic Extirpate, which is given to us by the set, by the Flames set. And then we move on to Mass Purification, which is a pure contamination and corruption with a huge wave of Sigmars purifying fire. Enemies with low health are killed instantly. And here, enemies with low health, I'm wondering, is that trash mobs, popcorn mobs, or is that enemies who have like 10, 15, 20% HP left, something like that. So that's the active skills and the god skills, active god skills. Now we're moving on to the passives. Hero of the Desert is something that comes from the Tomb King's DLC. If you don't have Tomb King's DLC, there are options. You can try and use Duelist Chain Reaction, or you can use padded armor for survivability, or you can try and use, for example, where was it? There was a potion, I think it's in the Invasions. This potion is not bad, it gives you 30% HP, but in the Invasions, I think you can get this elixir that gives you damage reduction, or the elixir that gives you damage. They are not bad options as well, or you can use one of those things. The passive ones. There's other things you can try using, but let's just talk about the next thing. So in Caucasian Mastered lets you have extra damage based on how many nearby icons of Sigmar. For every nearby icon of Sigmar you get 5% damage, and you can get like 5, 6, 7 of those icons if you are playing your cards right. And you can get even more if you replace, for example, this one with where was it? The martyr skill, with this skill that spawns icons of Sigmar when you cast it, or maybe it was this one. This one creates icons of Sigmar. This makes 4 icons of Sigmar. And this would have been nice, and it would have been a great synergy with one item that's kind of broken right now. And the item that's kind of broken right now is... where was it? There was one item. I think I don't have it here. But yeah, there's an item that gives you... this one gives you damage for each active icon of Sigmar nearby. So this one is supposed to give you 30% damage for each icon of Sigmar nearby. I don't see any difference, so it's probably yet another Forge Blood situation. By that I mean when Kiwa the engineer released, there was a pistol that wasn't working, and still not working to this day, after like 6 months or so, since May. So I think that's probably the same case with this item. It's not working, so hopefully they fix it so we actually get this damage bonus for each active icon of Sigmar. So back to the skills. This is definitely a nice skill, and it can stack with that one item when it's fixed. Branding Iron Superior. All traps deal extra fire damage. Maybe here you might wanna consider improving it. And upgrading it to... where did it go? Branding Iron Superior. Going for Mastered. It's not that bad, because the difference is not that big. It's like from 112,000 to 124. And this is a trap, and the icons of Sigmar are considered traps. So this one you can even downgrade. If you want more points for other things, you can downgrade it even without caring too much. Then next we've got Purified Powder Superior. Ranged attacks deal more damage, which is perfect. They ignore a percentage of the enemy's armor, which is 10%, armor piercing, and grant a damage bonus for a few seconds. So for 3 seconds you get another 10%. So as you constantly move, you're doing ranged attacks if you have ranged stance. So you can see, those are ranged attacks. This is considered a ranged attack. And you keep getting this bonus damage. And that's pretty decent. You can keep triggering this. You can keep getting that extra bonus damage. And it's nice. Then there's Hunter's Focus Mastered. Remaining in the same stance gradually reduces damage taken up to 15 stacks of 1%. For a total of 15% damage reduction. And then remaining in range stance has the opposite effect, and that opposite effect means it reduces the cooldown and increases the cost reduction. And if you remain in melee, It reduces the cost reduction and increases the cooldown. So if you switch to melee stance, you're gonna be consuming less energy when you spam this. But I found it to work even with ranged attacks. I'm not consuming too much energy with my stack cost reduction, and I'm regenerating energy at a decent stage. So if you don't need the damage reduction, you can replace it for something else. You get 20% cost reduction or 20% cooldown reduction. If you're getting 20% cost reduction, that gives you 20% more cooldown time, or the other way around, depending on the stance. And this all fire damage deals extra damage to burning enemies, which is a great synergy because this is a fire skill, and this might be physical, but if the enemies are burning, it's still good, and this makes them take more damage. So basically this is your main source of damage in any case, and for bosses you're stacking this, and this is fire damage as well, so this is increased by this thing. I think that's pretty much it for the skills. There are ways to change some things around, and you might want to experiment with all sorts of things. For example, maybe instead of this one you might want to get this one. This one would grant you energy but less damage. I still prefer to go for the more damage approach. But yeah, that kind of is it for the passives. Someone might even want to play with this thing, with the crits. Crit chances increased after using a god skill. I don't think it's necessary, but it's something you can put instead of Hero of the Desert. You can put this one here. We've got 3 points, so I can do this just as easily without a problem with those points. So that's it for the skills. Let's move on to the god skills. For the god skills setup, my approach here was get as much crit damage and cost reduction and damage as you can get. That's why I'm taking the points all the way to here, and I'm taking the points all the way to here. In fact, this one is not even needed because you're not using it, but I'm stopping here for this cost reduction. And then you have options. Option 1 would be doing this, which gives you exactly the same thing as doing it the other way around, as doing it that way. So all those points here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points, are exactly the same as those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points. The only difference is here you can remove 1 point from Divine Touch Mastered, and then have 1 extra point to put elsewhere for damage, or damage over time, or HP. There are some choices, some things you can do. If you don't want this 6 cost reduction, you can even remove this 6 cost reduction and then go over here for extra 20% more crit damage. And that's great. That's actually pretty great to do it that way. You can also do the exact same thing somewhere over here with this crit damage and damage. So whether it's this crit damage and damage or the other one, it doesn't matter, honestly. But you definitely want this crit damage. You definitely want to stop here. So yeah, if you remove that 6% cost reduction and you go from 42 to 36 cost reduction, if you think you can handle it, this gives you extra 20% crit damage and 3% damage. Or you can still keep the damage and get the cost reduction. And if you want to use Divine Touch Master, that's your option. So it's flexible. It's flexible as a setup, but this is my suggestion for now. This is the min-max setup for the way I play it right now, this current setup here. So I hope it's clear why I've taken things the way I did. See, this is unwalking because the Sigil, and also Branding Iron Mastered, which we're not using as much. And this is unwalking as the Mass Purification, and I'm not using the Mastered, I'm using the basic one. But if you want, you can use the Mastered, you can remove some things. Such as this one can be removed to give you points, and that gives you 8, and if you remove this, that gives you 15, and you can just upgrade this, and that gives you 3 points left, and you can probably do this chain reaction there, and that can work with those 3 points, and it's not gonna be a bad choice to rework it in such a way. and that can also be used to heal as well in that way. So hopefully this is clear regarding the god skills, regarding how you can rework certain things. But yeah, it's definitely a fun way to do it. So now let's quickly talk about the legendary ranks. The legendary ranks are obviously something that's not gonna be there for you as a new player. The things to avoid probably would be legendary healing. Although legendary healing is good, because this skill consumes energy and you can constantly heal with legendary healing. And it's not bad. You can consider using legendary healing if you want more survivability. The things I really would suggest going for would be legendary endurance, crushing and reinforcement, and eventually punishment. So decide, do you want more damage reduction or do you want more damage? If you want more damage reduction, this one makes the damaged enemies do less damage. This one, see, damaging an enemy has a chance to reduce the damage taken, your damage taken. So this reduces the damage the enemies do, this reduces the damage you take from enemies. So for me this is a higher priority than this one. And this one is when using a skill with a cooldown, it has a chance to increase your damage and your damage reduction for 5 seconds. So skills with cooldown, keep in mind Sacred Sigil and Mass Purification does not count as a skill with cooldown. Condemned, however, does count as a skill with cooldown. Cast Iron does count as a skill with cooldown. What else counts as a skill? Martyr counts as a skill with cooldown. So does... actually, yeah, that's it. So Martyr, Condemn and Cast Iron are your cooldown skills. And you can do what I did before and do that change. And this change would be, where was it? Where did that purification go? So you can replace the current purification grade, the one I'm using. Where is it? This one. You can use this one as I was using it, and then you can use Hero of the Desert as I had it originally set up. And then over here you can use a skill with cooldown. If you want to proc this one more often, you can pick any skill with cooldown to go with Condemn, Martyr, or Cast Iron. Pick the thing with the lower cooldown. They've got the same cooldown, so it doesn't matter, honestly. They all have the same cooldown, Cast Iron and Martyr. But I would strongly keep Condemn on this slot. So here you can just use this and it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be pretty fine as it is. To be honest. In fact, I'm gonna plot my screenshot of the suggested skills this way. Is the ideal setup. So yeah, that's kind of it regarding the legendary ranks. Again, eventually you would want to have this one at 100 power, this one at 100 power, this one at 100 power, and this one at 100 power, and then you can start investing into legendary healing or rage afterwards, whichever you need more. Now let's move on to showing you some information about the gear. Here we are at the segment that many people might care about, and this is the gear segment. In this segment, as you can see, we're gonna be talking about the Blessed Flames set, and then I would mention some good rings and amulets that you might want to consider. In general, since I'm focusing on damage and not survivability, because I don't plan on taking this build to Chaos 9 and 10, no more than Chaos 8, that means we're not gonna be focusing too much on the damage, on the survivability. So the Blessed Flame set is the must-have. It's the thing that gives you Extirpate Heroic, and it's pretty nice. Nearby enemies take fire damage each time they attack or use a skill. It's pretty decent. It gives you the Heroic Extirpate, so you can keep the flow going, keep moving. I was using 1, 2, 3 pieces green and 2 pieces red, and that's how it was when I was recording. I was using a red hat. In the first few recordings for Chaos 6 and 7, I was using a red hat, then I got a green hat, and then I got 3 more flames green hats, all with different things. I decided to keep this one because it has decent cost reduction and cooldown, and I got good rolls on on the blessing, but ideally I'm probably gonna replace it later with this one. No, not this one. I think this one. More HP, more cooldown, a little less cost reduction, but overall a better one. Less wood quality, but also resistance to damage over time. So and more armor. So this is the better option. And you want cooldown reduction as the highest priority. Cooldown reduction and HP are priority number 1. Priority number 2 would be armor. Then for the coat you want HP and armor priority number 1. Cost reduction priority number 2, and here priority number 3 is cost reduction. For the legs, the same one as the coat, priority number 1 HP and armor, number 2 cost reduction. And on the gauntlets and boots, it's a little bit different. On the boots you would want speed bonus, which is just movement speed, together with HP. Although I don't think you really need the speed bonus on this build, so I would still say HP and armor priority number 1, cost reduction number 2, and number 3 movement speed for when you're not jumping around, which shouldn't happen much. Honestly, you can sustain your energy just as easily with this build. Then the flames gloves. This is the place where you can get damage and crit damage. So it's not just damage, but you can also get crit damage. Just look at this other pair of gloves I've got. The other pair, as you can see, doesn't have health drain. And health drain is super important, so I'm fine to sacrifice 40 crit damage, but to get some health drain, because health drain would make things much easier for you when speedrunning, to not have to rely only on the potion for healing. If you get health drain on your amulets and rings and stack it with the gauntlets, it would be amazing. As you can see, I've got 199 health drain here, 100 here, so that's like 199, and then there's 183 more, and that's a decent amount of health drain. If only I had some more, like 100 or so more on the meadow, it would have been even better. So you can see I've chosen to sacrifice the crit damage for health drain, and I think it's a good choice. I've also chosen to sacrifice damage over time to get wood quality. Ideally I wouldn't care about the wood quality because it's only 26, and I would still prefer the damage over time there. My ideal setup would be, actually I know I have damage over time, I don't have wood quality, my bad. But yeah, ideally I would have armor, damage over time, health drain, maximum HP, and either cost reduction or crit damage. So the meta roles here would be good armor, good damage, good crit damage, good HP, good health drain, and priority number 1 would be damage and HP. Priority number 2 would be health drain, and then crit damage, and priority number 3 would be armor, and then damage over time and cost reduction and things like that. So that should hopefully clear some things up regarding rows. Next we're moving on to the rings. There's a lot of rings you can get. I like this one that increases the healing and gives me HP. I also like this one that gives me energy when I'm critting. It keeps my energy afloat, and it also heals me. So it's not a bad one, especially if you stack a lot of crit chance. There are some options for survivability, such as this one that makes you do less damage. So you do 50% less damage, but you take 15% less damage and you have 50% more HP. So this is the more tanky option, and this is probably what you might want to be using for Chaos 9 if you attempt to do it. And then there's another option that relies on you picking up Bloodlust Orbs. Where did it go? It's this one. Getting Bloodlust Orbs has a chance to give you for 8 seconds 15% damage reduction, and then there's where did it go, that other one. This one is also nice, but I would strongly suggest to not use this ring. So when you take damage, this damage drains your energy. You don't take much damage from your HP. Some parts of that damage you take is reduced by 50%, so you have 50% damage reduction. But yeah, you take damage to your energy. It's not 1-to-1, obviously there's some sort of scaling, but the more damage you take, the more hits you take, the more it drains your energy, and then you're gonna cripple yourself, and that build just doesn't mix well with this setup. Probably on a lower difficulty like Chaos 5 and 6, maybe there it might be fine if you have enough damage to kill things quickly. Then there's this one. Collecting Bloodlust Orbs reduces the cooldown of things by 2 seconds, and for 8 seconds you get 50% damage reduction. For speedrunning this is not bad as long as you can focus on picking up the orbs. You might want to consider removing the Signet Ring of No, and just use this one if you have a good rolled one. I don't have good rolled ones, and this brings us to good rolls, and just give me a moment and we're gonna talk about those in a moment. Let's just talk about the medal quickly. The medal I'm using now is Medal of the Exemplar. It gives you wood quality up to 500 based on your crit chance. The more crit chance, the more wood quality. If you have 80% crit chance, which is the cap, you get 500 wood quality. Right now I'm sitting at 48% crit chance. This gives me 300 wood quality, which is good enough. I don't use it because I want to. It's just because it's one of my best amulets. The other ones that are good rolled for me are this one, but that's gonna make me take more damage. And other players would take less, so for team play that's a good one, but not for this build. You're not a tank with this build. So something that's very good is Pure Soul Medal. On bosses, this one and this one would do 50% more damage, and that's gonna be a big burst, a ton of damage on enemies. Another thing that you might want to consider heals when using a god skill. Again, you need good rolls, and more about good rolls in a moment. This one I wouldn't suggest using. This one, I mean, it's not gonna give you good results. You need to have a ton of health regeneration to get the most out of it. So not for this build. And what other amulets did we not talk about? There's this one. Oh, that's Medal of the Exemplar. I think I've covered most of the important medals. But yeah, feel free to replace with any medal you like. The Medal of the Exemplar. My suggestion would be the God Skills do more damage, Pure Soul Medal, or the God Skills heal you, and the Thrice Blessed Copper Medal, and that would be my suggestion. And now let's talk about good rolls. You don't really need much cooldown reduction in this build, but it still helps to have as much as you can get. So the more cooldown reduction, the better it is for you still. Because the god skills still have cooldown. They may not count as skills with cooldown, and they may not trigger things that proc on when using a skill with cooldown, such as the Duelist Chain Reaction. But the Sacred Sigil and Mass Purification do benefit from cooldown increases from all types of sources. So for example, this one, when I switch stances to melee, it gives me cooldowns, and you can see the cooldown here keeps dropping as this keeps going up. So we're at 19 seconds, and soon actually yeah, it already dropped from 30 something seconds, see 31 seconds, 36 seconds, boom, to 19 seconds and 22 seconds. And you want cooldown reduction here and crit chance, but the highest priority for this build should be the crit chance. Crit chance high priority, cooldown second priority, damage third priority. After that, things like HP, cost reduction are not bad, and if it's a green one you can even have a fifth stat. And yeah, there's things like the things that you would want to avoid is probably health regeneration, counter attack damage, extra gold, wood quality, damage over time, resistance to damage over time. I would go for health drain, crit chance, cooldown reduction, damage, and HP. That would be my ideal roll. On the rings, the exact same things apply. Crit chance priority number 1. Cooldown probably priority number 2 if you want to spam the god skills. If not, don't worry about it, and then just put damage on priority number 2. But for me, damage is priority number 3. Health drain and HP are priority number 4 and 5. Regardless of what you want more, I would say go for health drain more than HP first. Cost reduction is not bad, and it's nice to have it, so it's still a good stat as a filler. But the priority probably should be crit chance and damage in the first place for now. So I think we've talked about items enough. Let's talk about the weapons. Enough of the armor. So barbed irons is what I'm using, and the thing is, Crusader's Flames would be the item I wanna use the most for this build, but it just doesn't seem to work. Whenever I try it, my damage doesn't increase based on the active Icons of Sigmar. If you want to stack Icons of Sigmar, you would really want to use Martyr Superior, and you would want to downgrade certain things to get this working. For example, you can remove Hero of the Desert, but that's gonna lose you some damage. So again, there's ways to make it work. There are ways to make it work. For example, downgrading Branding Iron, and it can work, and that's a good choice of weapon. So it would be either this or barbed irons. I won't recommend using anything other than Crusader's Flames or barbed irons. Saintly Blades give you the exact same bonus as one other item. I forgot its name. It's a buck. Right now Saintly Blades is the other choice, and there's one more item which is the conversion tools, and they right now give you the exact same bonus. So either the conversion tools needs a new bonus or the Saintly Blades, and this makes the traps have a chance, not always deal extra damage, but traps have a chance to deal extra damage to enemies with high health and to stun enemies with low health. But what does enemies with high health mean? Does it mean champions, or does it mean enemies above 90-70% HP? The way I understand it, it means champions. That's how I've noticed those skills to work. So that's extra damage to champions with traps, but not always, just a chance. And I don't think it fits well with this build, because your main damage here, you do traps and you do damage from traps, and this one is a trap and it does a ton of damage, but the main damage while pushing and rushing is Extirpate. So I would suggest Crusader's Flames or barbed irons, but if you're constantly moving, you're just gonna be leaving the Sigmar icons behind you. So maybe you can switch to Crusader Flames during a boss fight, and while rushing, use barbed irons. I think that's gonna be the meta way to do it. Then a Depth of Flame is a good pistol. And there are other pistols you can use. For example, definitely not Iron Seal, because you're not gonna remain in place. But this one is not bad if you can afford taking hits. And still, I would not suggest using it. So for me, Depth of Flame or Sigmar's Breath would be fine. But Sigmar's Breath, again, it's very dependent on getting those bounties, and bounties don't appear much more often. So Depth of Flame for me is the meta pistol for most builds with this guy. So what rolls do you want? Here you want cooldown reduction, crit chance and damage. Top 3 things. Cooldown reduction, crit chance and damage. You want those 3, regardless of what. Next you want HP. Next you want crit damage and cost reduction, and that gives you 1 slot, maybe for armor piercing. Then over here you can get you cannot get crit chance, but you can get a ton of crit damage. As you can see, this one has 94% crit damage. So here you want priority number 1 is damage and HP. Priority number 2 would be crit damage. And then armor piercing and cost reduction would be pretty nice. Damage over time is not bad, and I think this one is pretty decently rolled. I think this one has everything one might want on it. Pretty perfect roll. Honestly, every single stat is good on that one. Health drain is definitely nice for both of those. So if you can get health drain, even better. You can sacrifice the damage over time or the cost reduction, although this is 17% cost reduction. You can probably sacrifice the armor piercing as well, but the health drain would help, and it would stack well if you have more sources of it. And here I would sacrifice the 6.8% armor piercing without thinking twice, or the wood quality, of course, obviously. So ideally, instead of wood quality, I would have HP, and instead of armor piercing, I would have some health drain here, because this is 6.8%, but this is 13. So armor piercing is less useful on the pistol than on the weapon, on the blade. And this became a little bit longer than it needs to be, but hopefully it was all useful information to all of you who are thinking of building with this guy. Now, next off, we can show you some more gameplay footage and talk about how to play the build. And here we are at the gameplay segment, where I'm gonna show you a little bit more footage of me playing the build and also talk about how I rotate my skills, which skill I use, although there's not much of a rotation here in this build, so there's not that much to talk about. But I would try to at least talk while showing you the gameplay footage. So as you can see, obviously the most important thing is just using your movement heroic skill constantly to keep putting icons of Sigmar so that our passive that gives us damage based on the nearby icons can trigger, and keep it on the range stance so you can shoot all those extra bullets that you can see sometimes hit up to 10 plus million, which is pretty decent amount of damage. Normally it would be between 2, 4, 5 million as you're moving, because you don't stay around as many icons of Sigmar when that happens. But when you stop for fighting some elites like this one, you would want to use your trap god skill and your second god skill, the flame wave, so you can stack up more damage on those. And the healing would be the only thing that you might have problems with unless you are using the legendary healing, which I wasn't using for recording this video. But since our main skill that we spam uses energy, that means we can just add legendary healing, not hearing, well, legendary hearing, that might be something nice to consider. So yeah, we can add legendary healing power and proc chance from our legendary skill ranks, and it could probably help a little bit with the legendary healing, stacking and procking and keeping us healed up. So in general, I love the build. It's so fun to play this set. To some people it might seem super boring, where you're just spamming one skill, but for speed farming, if you're not here to challenge yourself to see can I push it further or not, that's the type of build. It's kind of a brain dead build, but it works, it gets the job done. It's not your Chaos 9 and 10 build, obviously. So it's equal to, for example, how in Diablo 3 you can play a Whirlwind Barb, but that's not gonna take you too far if you do it for speedrunning, for farming lower rifts. So and the same like my Ewon tier Riftwalker, the Mage Riftwalker. Obviously it's not built for Chaos 9 and 10, but it gets the job done very well on Chaos 8 and 7 and 6. And the same way as my turret speedrunning setup for Kiowa that I was doing. I don't have a build for that turret Kiowa setup, but if someone wants it, I can go ahead and do a video about it. It's not that different, slight changes to my Kiowa turret builder, but yeah, it's basically a speedrunning lower difficulties build, like I normally do on every class. I have some sort of a build like that. And this one is just as mobile as Ewon tier, maybe a little bit slower than Ewon tier's Riftwalker, but yeah, you can just constantly spam. You're not gonna run out of energy if you have enough energy cost reduction. You can see even bosses don't take as much, although this guy just healed himself. If you stack your god skills and if you pay attention, you're gonna have a good time. To get notified when I upload more content like this or similar for this game or other games like it, such as Wooters of all varieties, you could subscribe to my channel, hit the bell button to not miss out on notifications, and optionally you can even join as a member of the Struck Club and get access to emotes, badges or other perks such as private tutorials and things like that. And I would like to use this part of the video to thank the people who are currently YouTube members of the Struck Club. Thanks for watching this video, keep it cool, and until next time, Struck Club. Goodbye.